many working class people, they don't like rich people all that much, right? But they seem to hate intellectuals.
The reason why the hardworking class dislikes or despises intellectuals, it's not because they're smart. It's because they lack wisdom and they play a huge role in development of policies if they're not held accountable for the result of their ideas and policies. They also tend to lack a lot and an immense amount of wisdom. Intelligence just means you're smart. It doesn't mean that your ideas will be able to predict unintended consequences of your ideas. The incentives that intellectuals are motivated by is by being well known and getting like that ego stroke and being able to speak and so on. They are not paid by their results like a doctor or an engineer. If their idea fails, they are not held responsible. If an engineer builds a bridge and that bridge completely collapses, they're held responsible. And intellectuals have this lack of common sense that the average person has. And they often treat the average person like they're like a pawn on a chessboard that they can just simply move around and do whatever they want. But they fail to acknowledge the fact that we're dealing with human beings. And human beings work on incentives and consequences. And intellectuals' ideas have a terrible track record, and they tend to support all types of crazy ideas and all types of people who committed mass genocide. There's a book called Intellectuals in Society by Thomas. It's about 800 pages, and it gives you example after example, and it shows you how intellectuals harm societies in general. Like, intellectuals are supposed to influence society in a positive way, but because they're so insulated from the real world, they have little to no experience in the real world as like a hard-working man. They're just often in colleges, protected from their ideas. They come up with some absurd stuff, and Thomas Sowell has said that some ideas are so absurd that only intellectual would think of them, while the average person would look at it and be like, this is absurd. And there's a reason why a lot of intellectuals tend to be left-leaning and Marxist, is because in the real world, they would not be able to succeed. In the academic world, they tend to be protected, as well as their ideas. When people listen to and support people like Karl Marx, who was a brokey majority of his life, who was always in debt, he would rage quit and get mad at people who even question him a little bit or ask about his mindset or his ideas. I don't think it's a person you want to listen to, especially when his premises are flawed. His ideas have been tried and failed over and over and over again. Majority of the harm that has been done in the world hasn't been done by the dumb or the average person. It's been done by intelligent people who thought themselves superior or intelligent and so on. But they completely have this sense or lack of understanding of incentives and consequences which their ideas create. And they have this bizarre vision of the world that's completely too contrary to reality oftentimes. A utopian vision where humans can be programmed and moved around and so on. And then you have useful idiots who regurgitate people like Karl Marx and so on, which ends up killing millions of people and creating more poverty, and saying stuff like capitalism is evil, even though they oftentimes don't know what capitalism is or what it entails, and they blame everything on capitalism, like war. And wars affect systems like communist countries as well. Communist countries have been into war. And intellectuals usually have this disdain for the average folk. And this intellectual in that video is completely out of touch. It's kind of like those movie stars in Hollywood where they say and support like a bunch of like crazy stuff that the average person just thinks is bizarre.